Woohoo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. I interviewed Satan yesterday. Yes, I did interview a Satan cosplayer. I asked him to remove his mask. He didn't. I asked him his name. He wouldn't tell me. It was some college student, I'm presuming, or I'm assuming that he was a college student and he was dressed as Satan at the Charlie Kirk event that was hosted on Illinois State University's campus. I'll get to some of the discussions I had. Some of them were just talking to mentally ill people. I'll play some of those clips where, I just talk to mentally ill people. And have you ever had to try to have a conversation with somebody who just their wires are crossed? It's hard to do. So I did that yesterday, and I mean, I had to park a mile away from campus. It was just insane, the attendance. So we're going to get to all of that. Plus, I do want to talk about a meta engineer admitting to an undercover journalist that the company Meta abuses the H-1B visas to favor foreign applicants over Americans. Okay, I've talked about the H-1B visas before. Elon Musk, I think, is a proponent of these. Vivek Ramaswamy, I think, was a proponent of these, or one of them weren't. I don't know. But either way, a lot of these big tech type guys, in which Elon Musk is, he's a big tech guy. They love the H-1Bs because they get a bunch of cheap labor. So I'm going to get to that story because the meta engineer just admitted with his mouth they abuse the system, which we kind of already knew. But I also want to get to the Texas Attorney General investigating the USA fencing for expelling this female player. I've talked about this a couple of times this week. This story has really gained some traction. She kneeled, she took a knee, because she didn't want to face off with a male fencer, and then they gave her a black card and disqualified from the match, and she forfeited the match, or disqualified her and gave her a black card after she forfeited this match because she said that she didn't want to go up against a man, and she was I think I'm semi quoting her here, paraphrasing. She says, I don't want to play into somebody's fantasy. Okay, I live in a reality, right? And I'm gonna get hurt if I fence this dude. So we're gonna get to the Texas Attorney General because he's going about this in a really interesting way. The state law that the USA fencing broke is really interesting. So we're gonna get to this in just a little bit. But first, I do want to talk about yesterday from noon to 2. I was out there. Bloomington Normal High School students, largely, I would say, they were okay. Now, attendance, it's been debated. There's a lot of misinformation out there. The Pantograph WGLT, I'm sorry, but they lied. It wasn't hundreds of people. This was approaching 3,000. Now, some people say 5,000. I don't know if it got that large, but at one point, I made it a point to go up to a security officer and ask how many they were expecting. And he said, well, there's at least 1,000 people here right now. And that was right when I got there, which was at noon. Okay. So there was at least 1,000 people right at noon, but the event was from noon to 2. So there were people pouring in 12:30, 1 o'clock. People started to leave probably around 1:45 because you couldn't hear Charlie Kirk. I don't know if they denied him amplification devices or what. I went back, and the press isn't even allowed near Charlie Kirk, so I went back behind the fence there where the press was all gathered, but you couldn't really see Charlie. You could hear him, but the amplification devices, I think, were denied. Or the university didn't allow them. I don't know. You couldn't really hear them, but people stuck around. Thousands of people were just hanging out right there in Milner Plaza, and a lot of them were wearing red and white hats that were passed out by Charlie Kirk. He was passing out, I know, at least the white hats, but there were a lot of MAGA hats as well, the traditional red MAGA hats. Now, when I was in the crowd, the people who were gathered, and they were all closely gathered because they were trying to hear Charlie Kirk, when I was interviewing everybody around, I ran into a lot of high school students, which is awesome. That they're getting involved early and they're being a part of the conversation. They're not even able to vote yet. So I talked to some boys from Central Catholic, and they disagreed, obviously, with the counter-protester, or with the protesters of Charlie Kirk and his presence on campus. They deeply opposed his presence. Now, how many protesters were there? There were protesters, but they weren't amongst the crowd. Okay, I talked to pretty much almost not everybody, but good swaths of the crowd that were gathered around the tent, and a lot of them were not protesting Charlie Kirk's campus. Now, some of them were leftists. But they wanted to hear what Charlie had to say, and then they also wanted to have a conversation with Charlie and, have a discussion with Charlie Kirk. So those people I don't really count as like leftists because they're moderate, and they wanted to actually have a conversation with him, and they wanted to hear him and the conversations that were happening. And they were mingled among the right wingers, okay, or I say right wing, I say the people, who have Trump hats on, the people who were supportive of Charlie Kirk being there and probably had similar belief systems as Charlie Kirk. Okay, but they were all intermingled, which I thought was awesome. I've never really seen that before, which tells me a couple of things: that the country's coming together, and we can have conversations, and of course I'm going to play some of the crazy parts of the rally for you, or the event, some of the more extremists that I talked to. Now, I did talk to some Central Catholic boys. I thought it was interesting. They were there because they wanted to be there, right? And they were such sweet boys. But they really took issue with some of the protesters' stances, where they said, men should compete against women and females in women's sports. And when I say men, biological men, trans women. Okay, so protesters, it's important that I note this: satanic garb was worn by at least one. Now, there were several others who were hanging out with this guy, also wearing t-shirts with the, I don't know what it's called, the star that's like satanic star or whatever. There were several of his friends hanging out with him. They had satanic like t-shirts on and things like that. So I saw it with my eyes. There were definitely more than just one Satanist at the Charlie Kirk event. He just went to the extreme and wore like a goat mask or a Satan looking mask and like a robe with a pentagram on, like a straight up costume. There was also protesters who held up signs like "Redbirds hate you, Charlie." There was also a really weird part of the protest, which I'll get to here in just a second, but I want to play this clip for you. You guys can go ahead, check it out on social media. It's posted to our Facebook page.
I do oppose his presence on campus. I saw that he was coming here from the American Comeback Tour. There was a few people in like the dining halls handing out papers saying that they should go to this event, and I saw that and I instantly felt really bad, because ISU is supposed to be an accepting school where anybody can be themselves, and Charlie Kirk's opinions and the way that he voices them completely disregards that.
Okay, really quick. I want to jump in because I think it's interesting. She says, instantly, I felt bad because I heard about Charlie Kirk's presence. That just goes to show you the media coverage of Charlie Kirk and how they've I'll just say brainwashed this poor girl into believing that Charlie Kirk is a terrible human being. But if she were to get out of the fringes, so she was obviously in the back with about 50 or so protesters who are protesting Charlie Kirk's presence on campus. If she were just to intermingle with the rest of the crowd, like the thousands, okay, like the 3,000 people, I would say close to 3,000 people were there. Some people say 5,000. At noon, I checked in with security. They said 1,000, more than 1,000 they were, tasked with protecting. But so if she were to just join the rest of the group, she would have seen that there were people with all kinds of different political opinions, not as extreme political opinions to the point where they just can't stand to listening to Charlie or talking with Charlie. They were like moderate, and they wanted to actually have a conversation with Charlie Kirk and listen to what he had to say. It sucks that ISU didn't, use amplification devices because not a lot of the 3,000 people could hear him behind that tiny little tent, and they had like a couple of speakers. Like the amplification devices were not adequate at all. But if she were to just go in and like talk with some of the people, I think that she would realize that Charlie Kirk isn't as bad as the media says he is. Take a listen to this.
He does not want people to be themselves, or at least that's how it seems. And us being here and speaking our voices shows that this is a safe campus, even though Charlie Kirk is here today. There is, of course, the topic of should they be medically transitioned versus like not at all. I do believe that for trans women who want to play in biologically women's sports, there should be like a year that they are on testosterone blockers, because of course that is like the whole thing. And sure, that could be a little bit more of an advantage, but if they had been on testosterone blockers and if they have been on estrogen for as long as they have been, they have the right to play on the female sport. They have the right to be there because even though they biologically are male, they have been taking medicine to lessen that. There really isn't an advantage anymore. Not any less than a woman who has been doing this sport for 10 plus years or something like that. She has an advantage. That doesn't really mean that like the trans person has the advantage just because they're biologically male.
Okay. So some of the signs say trans rights, human rights, zero tolerance for anti-Semitism. There's Satan. He's wearing Satan garb. Now, he had a couple of friends around him who had, I don't know what that's called. I think it's called a pentagram. I don't know. I don't partake in Satanism. Now, I did hear, and she admitted to me later, and I did not catch her name, an ISU professor. She told me she was an ISU professor. She saw my shirt. I was wearing Cities 92.9. And when I interview people, I'm very clear about where I stand, politically and where our station stands. If they ask me, hey, are you right-leaning or a left-leaning news outlet? I'll just tell them straight up that we're a right-leaning conservative radio station who carries Charlie Kirk, and I was honest about that, but she knew right away. She saw my t-shirt and it had Cities 92.9's logo on it, and she goes, "Oh, I know your radio station. I hate that radio station." And I'm like, "Well, we always want you to listen." And we were nice to each other. It wasn't like I was fighting with her. And I asked her name. She wouldn't give it to me, but she did admit, or she did say, so I heard that she said, well, this one guy yells at her and says, "Hey, you're actually defending Satanists." And she goes, "Satanism is the superior religion." I heard this come out of her mouth, and she's teaching at ISU. I couldn't believe that I heard that come out of her mouth. Now, one thing she did tell me, and we'll get to this later, there were some protesters who were chanting things that were just nonsensical. Free John Pork. John Pork is a meme character, a fictitious character, became popular on social media back in 2018 or something like that. And John Pork is like half human, half pig. It's a really bizarre like internet culture thing, and they were shouting like "Free John Pork, free John Pork." So it was just nonsensical. They were shouting to shout, and they wanted something to shout, and they brought signs with John Pork's face on it. John Pork is like a totally fictitious character. He's just a funny looking pig man. That's it. And like that's all it is. And they were just shouting nonsensical nonsense. And you could tell that these people didn't want to have an actual conversation, didn't have any actual belief systems. Now they joined in with the girl that I talked to here, where she said that there should be a certain amount of hormone therapies, puberty blockers, hormone blockers, that somebody should be able to take in order to get them to a point where they don't have a biological advantage over women. You and I both know that it's ingrained in men's DNA and women's DNA. Like, no matter how many hormone therapies you take, you're always going to have that biological advantage. And, I thought it was interesting. She didn't deny that there is a biological advantage. She recognized that there's a biological advantage that men have over women. So that's a start, right? Is recognizing science and that it's real. She's just has a misconception, I would say, about the accuracy or the efficacy of these hormone therapies and how they work. So yeah, there was a group of kids who later came. The ISU professor I talked to you about, I didn't catch her name. She talked to me about how, the John Pork kids came a little bit later, and she goes, there were two separate groups and they kind of joined together. But they were just shouting nonsensical garbage like free John Pork. And when I went up and asked who John Pork was, nobody would give me a straight answer. They just would say John Pork stands for love. And everybody in the crowd, like the 3,000 plus people who were like, I'll just say it, normal, and not mentally ill. I'm just going to be honest with you. When I tried to talk to those poor kids, they're just mentally ill. And there's no other way to explain it, because if you're shouting nonsensical randomness and you're approached and asked about it and you have no idea what you're shouting, that's mental illness. But when I went up and asked them all about it, they wouldn't tell me. They don't know. But the 3,000 plus normal people, they were like, what is John Pork? I don't understand. And it just looked ridiculous out there. The protesters who were shouting this, and they were shouting this, I guess, in opposition of Charlie Kirk's presence. I don't know. I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to play a little bit more. I'll play the Central Catholic kids. They were from high school, or the high school, and they were there. And a lot of high schoolers were there, like different private school, Christian schools. They were all there, and they came with their friends. I asked them, you're going to see the laugh. They're going to say, oh, there were paid protesters. I asked them, did anybody pay you to come out today? And they said no. They said, my buddy, Ryan, he invited me, and I said, okay, I didn't know he was coming. I listened to Charlie Kirk on TikTok, and I like his TikToks. That was a lot of what the high schoolers told me. It was a lot of high schoolers, I'm gonna be honest with you. And most some college students, I'd say about like 60-40, 40% college students, 60% high school students. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Oh, it's all right. I'll see you next time, but we're going to play the rest of this clip here in just a little bit. I took this video. You guys can go find it on social media. If you guys want to share it out, that'd be great. I am going to get to, now there was this one guy I interviewed and his sound got cut off for some odd reason. I don't know, when I went and I was editing and post and his sound got cut off. So I am going to paraphrase what he told me. And I thought it was amazing, what he had been talking with me about. He went up to Charlie Kirk, and this is a kid on the right. Okay, somebody who is very, very well tuned with the news of the day, understands current events and politics, very well versed and very educated. Okay, this kid, and he was on the right wing. Okay, so I approach him and talk to him afterwards, and he starts talking to me about some of the things that he's upset with when it comes to the Trump administration. And I'm inclined to agree with some of the things he had said. I've told you guys multiple times, I am no fan of Elon Musk. I've told you that. I don't think I've made any kind of quarrels about how I'm not really that big of a fan of Elon Musk or Vivek Ramaswamy. I told you that I wouldn't have voted for Vivek Ramaswamy had he been the presidential nominee, for the Republican Party. I don't think I would have been, or had he been the nominee, I probably would have voted for him because he's Republican and I'm a Christian conservative. In that order, I wouldn't have voted for him in the primary. Obviously, even if Donald Trump was out, I probably would have voted for Ron DeSantis or one of the other candidates, simply because it bothers me that Vivek Ramaswamy is a Hindu, professes to practice the Hindu religion, and then in the same breath says that he's a cultural Christian, believes that Christianity, at least the morality or the cultural staples of Christianity, are something to be followed here in America. Like, yes, you can believe that, and everybody has freedom of religion. I'm not denying that. He says that we're a Judeo-Christian country, and we should recognize that. It really bothers me, though, when you have 2 feet, like 1 foot in this puddle and this foot in the other puddle, right? Like, that tells me you're not a very principled person. Clearly, you don't believe in your Hindu religion, because part of the whole point of religion is that you believe it is the one true religion, okay, that your religion is true. Otherwise, you wouldn't follow it or hold that deeply held belief. It's a religion. So that tells me who you are as a person. You have no convictions and principles. Okay, so that worries me about not just Vivek Ramaswamy, but Elon Musk. He says the exact same thing. From what I can tell, is that he's never professed Jesus Christ as Lord. He doesn't believe in the existence of God, the Judeo-Christian God. He doesn't believe in that God. He does say similar things like Vivek Ramaswamy says, where America is a Judeo-Christian country, and we should follow the principles here in the United States, the Christian biblical principles like the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not steal, kill, all those things, right? He says that we should follow the cult, and he calls himself a cultural Christian. He doesn't profess Jesus or as the savior of the world, and he doesn't believe in the existence of God, from what I can understand. You know, I haven't talked to Elon Musk one-on-one, but from interviews he's done, you can pretty much gather he's an atheist, but believes in the morality that Christians follow. And that tells me he's not very principled either. Okay, if you believe in all of the parts of Christianity, but won't profess the main staple of Christianity, or the main part of Christianity, which is Jesus Christ as Savior and the existence of God, that tells me you're not a very principled person. I thought it was a wrong move by Donald Trump, allowing him to kind of come into the camp. I don't like Elon Musk. I fear the technology. I don't really like. I'm a conservative. I don't believe in the radical technology. I use AI every single day. I use technology all of the time. Okay, I don't like it. But I live in a world where technology exists, and in order to make it in the world, you got to use it. Okay, but I have that stance on it, where I use it, but I don't like the advancement of technology. I think that it destroys young minds. There's brain rot. And, you know, artificial intelligence freaks me out. And I don't think I'm in the minority when it comes to that. If you were to poll people, a lot of people would probably say, yeah, that's kind of creepy. Robots, artificial intelligence, a little nuts. So I was talking to this kid on the right wing, and he went up and he chatted with Charlie Kirk. And, you know, I'm kind of disappointed to hear, not that I don't like Charlie Kirk anymore. I'm going to continue to listen to him. He's got great ideas, but I'm kind of disappointed that, you know, he shut the kid down right away and said something to the effect of, oh, this is what happens, or these types of guys, they come up here and we know that they don't have girlfriends, you know, and it drew a big laugh from the crowd. Number one, it's like he had some really great points of what Donald Trump is doing, and how it's not like 2016 Trump. We're dealing with a totally different Trump right now in 2024. And there are concerns that Silicon Valley, these big tech guys, they are going to also benefit, like you and I, from the interest rates dropping. That's what Donald Trump wants for Jerome Powell with the Fed to do, is drop the interest rates. And that's going to benefit everybody. And I'll get into this guy a little bit more. I got to come back for the radio friends. We're going to play this clip a little bit more. And then I'll get into the fellow that I interviewed and what he had to say about some of the things that Donald Trump is doing that concerns him and me, quite frankly. The endorsement of Lindsey Graham was a big red flag for me. And yeah, I'll be right back. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Charlie Kirk, who you can hear on Cities 92.9 at 11 o'clock tonight, 11 p.m. He drew crowds of 1,000 more. Okay, I checked in with security. They told me 1,000 people, more than 1,000 people at noon. Okay, and people were still filing in. I had to park a mile away. I parked in like a residential type area, like in a cul-de-sac, a mile away, and it was impossible to find parking. You also couldn't hear Charlie Kirk, probably because ISU denied him amplification devices, or didn't allow him to, put speakers all over the Milner Plaza. That would have been helpful. But it was overall a great event. It was nice to see a lot of you. There were some signs that said Redbirds hate you, but this was a small minority. I want to be very clear. Even the leftists that were sprinkled in this crowd of thousands, I would say that they didn't hate Charlie Kirk. They genuinely wanted to hear from him and genuinely wanted to talk to him and have a discussion. We are going to get to a young man that I interviewed. And he was talking with me about some of the stuff that Donald Trump is doing, and he's a young man on the right. So when I say that, he's probably voted for Donald Trump in 2024, 2020, or 2016. He definitely is somebody on the right, well versed in politics and current events. He knew what he was talking about. And, he's taken some issues with things, with what Donald Trump has done so far in his presidency. And he has some concerns, especially as it pertains to the Middle East and the conflict there. It is heating up, okay, to just put it blatantly. It is heating up in the Middle East, and I hope we don't go to war with Iran. Lindsey Graham would love to see it. And, conservatives, actually not that long ago, actually about a week or so ago, Donald Trump, he had earned a wave of backlash from the political right after endorsing Lindsey Graham. Okay, South Carolina. So we know Lindsey Graham loves going to war. We know that he's a rhino, part of this military-industrial complex. And, that's not America first. Going to war with Iran, not America first. We need to really be America first. Now, we have an obligation to Israel. Israel is somebody we should protect. They are our greatest ally. And, the Bible says that whoever curses Israel will be cursed. Okay, so we should be friends with Israel. But I really want to see this de-escalate in the Middle East, and I feel like it might be escalating. I also feel very strongly that I don't like Elon Musk. I've said that very clearly on the show multiple times. I don't think he's Hitler. I think that he is kissing Donald Trump's butt because he wants to make a ton of money. Okay, this is a big tech guy, much like Mark Zuckerberg, okay, types. They are going to kiss Donald Trump's butt, and they are going to want to abuse the H-1B visa system. Interest rates are going to get cut, and that's something that's going to benefit you and I because we get to, buy the cars at a low interest rate, buy our homes at a low interest rate, become entrepreneurs, start businesses. This is all great, but also the guys in Silicon Valley, your Elon Musks, your Mark Zuckerbergs, your big tech guys, your Jeff Bezos, they're all going to benefit, of course, from a Trump economy as well, and they're going to kiss Donald Trump's butt, and they're not going to be held accountable for their abuses. So Meta, an engineer, actually admits, and we're going to get to this, that they abused the H-1B visa system to favor foreign applicants over Americans. So they're hiring cheap labor over Americans. And not to mention, you got these tech startups. And I talked about this a lot yesterday. The only county in Illinois, one of the only counties, I think it's close to the only county. There's only a few counties who saw a population increase over the last couple of years, and McLean County is one of them. Why? It's the manufacturing job, stupid, right? It's the Ferrero plant. It's the Rivian plant. Bridgestone, tires, right? We've got manufacturing in Bloomington, Normal, McLean County, and that's why we saw a population influx. Whereas the rest of the state experienced an exodus, okay, and overall an exodus of population. Illinois lost a ton of population over the last couple of years because of the crazy amount of taxation. If McLean County isn't careful, being that they have some of the highest property taxes in the state, they're higher than the statewide averages. If they're not careful, they're going to lose their people. Their manufacturing, if the state of Illinois isn't careful with this corporate income tax, if they're not careful, these businesses, Rivian already decided to expand in Georgia. They're not expanding here in the state of Illinois. If we're not careful, we're going to lose those manufacturers, those plants here in the state. And McLean County, it'll be completely destroyed if those manufacturing plants leave, okay, the county. And unfortunately, you have local government who saw, sees the economic opportunity in Bloomington Normal, sees that there's tons of people with good jobs, and they've decided to tax you into oblivion. And they are exploiting the fact that we have good paying jobs here in McLean County. Anyway, yesterday we talked a lot about manufacturing, real jobs where you go, you work, you see the work done, you know what you did, you contributed to a product that people want. Like, for example, Ferrero candy. People want candy, they buy candy. You can see the product made. At the end of the day, you punch in, you punch out, and you go home to your family. And you don't think about work, actually. A lot of these blue-collar type manufacturing jobs, Americans like them because you don't have to think about work when you go home, and you can decompress with your family. Americans want these jobs, the manufacturing jobs. Now, the thing about these tech jobs, Elon Musk, Meta, right? These tech jobs, there's no tangible product being made. It's AI, software, and I think that that's really bad for American culture. I don't like the whole, like I said, I'm not a big tech person. I love using AI. I use AI Grok all the time. ChatGPT, best friend. I use it every single day. Okay. But that doesn't mean I really love it. I use it because we live in a world where I have to adapt to technology. If I had it my way, I'd be churning butter, right? But we don't live in a world like that anymore, and I have to adapt because everybody else is using it. So in the workforce, but I really think it's bad for American culture, these types of jobs, the tech jobs, the jobs where there is no tangible product. We need to get back to being a manufacturing powerhouse and making products that people want. Anyway, so I'm going to get to this fellow here in just a second because Charlie Kirk, I think, was very unfair in saying that, these types of guys come up here and these are the types of guys without girlfriends or something like that. I'm paraphrasing Charlie Kirk. And this young man, he talked to me afterwards and he goes, look, I've got real concerns being somebody on the right, the political right, about the Trump 2024 administration. We're going to get, or the 2025 administration. So we're going to get to that. I do want to play the rest of this clip. I was at the Charlie Kirk event yesterday, spoke with a lot of students on the right and on the left. Some of the Central Catholic high school students spoke with me. Here we go. Okay. So here you're going to hear a lot of shouts, free John Pork. I'm going to get to that here in just a second. It's just nonsensical shouting, which tells you all you really need to know about the alt left.
Free John Pork! Free John Pork! Free John Pork! Free John Pork!
Was in school, and actually my buddy Nick here, he was like, are you going to ISU to watch Charlie Kirk debate? And I was like, no. That's going on? And he was like, yeah, do you want to go? I was like, sure. So here we are now.
So what do you guys think about Charlie Kirk? You like some of his ideas?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think he's very good.
So obviously you guys aren't old enough to vote yet, right? Are you guys going to vote Republican in 2028 for the president?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So if you could have voted in 2024, who would you have voted for and why?
Trump, just because I don't believe all that Kamala believes, and I just think Trump has the better stances on stuff.
I would definitely say there's some values that people might teach that we might not agree with, but I'm definitely not afraid. I'm happy to go with my friends, have fun there, go to all the sports games, things like that.
We have a firm biology in that we should stick to that. We can't change stuff that can't be changed.
I get where people are coming from with that, but it's just like you gotta separate them. It's not fair either way. I mean, not just for the guys in the girls sports, for the girls in the guys sports, they don't have an equal opportunity to win. And I just think it should be how it was.
If you want to change your gender just to make sports easier, you shouldn't be doing it. You should be trying harder to make you better at sports.
Trans women.
No, thank you. Nope. I can do this one. I don't think that's okay. I think men should play men's sports and women should play women's sports.
Okay. Why do you think that is?
Because I don't think it's fair to have like a man playing a women's sport. I think it's just like he's just gonna be too good, like the next LeBron in a women's sport.
All right. Well, I wanted to play that for you. The Central Catholic high school students, they spoke with me. I passed out T-shirts and everything, and they got a kick out of that, of course. Now, they were telling me that, hey, I'm not afraid to go to college. If we disagree, that's okay. And I'm excited to go to the sports events on campus. And he goes, I think that there is, and definitely judging by the crowd, there is more people on the right and more people who agree than you would think. There was some fringy alt-leftists at this protest, but they're the fringy alt-leftists, and these kids weren't scared of college. They said, our beliefs are going to stay the same. We're not going to be manipulated out of our belief system. And if we disagree with some of our peers, that's okay. So they were really nice kids. All right, I got to take a quick break. We're going to be right back. WGLT Pantograph, they claim that there were hundreds. Misinformation. Sorry. Did they talk to the security officers? Did they ask them, hey, how many people are in attendance today? Probably not, because they wouldn't have said hundreds. There were thousands. I'd say close to 3,000. If I was doing my own estimates at noon, okay, there was 1,000 people. So that was right at the start of the event, and more people funneled in. So this proves why WGLT shouldn't, or NPR shouldn't be taxpayer funded, because it's misinformation. And if they're providing you misinformation from money they take from you, that's not fair, right? I'll get to the guy who I interviewed who was on the political right. He went up to the microphone, had a conversation with Charlie Kirk. I'm kind of disappointed that Charlie Kirk shut this kid down, because he had a lot of really strong talking points and concerns about the current Trump administration. And I share those concerns. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Yes, the student I talked to, I think that he was a little bit older, maybe than college-age student. He was a firefighter. I talked with him. I recorded it, but the audio didn't quite work out the way he wanted it to. He was talking a little bit about H-1B visas and how that system is abused by people like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, and he fears that Donald Trump is being a little too friendly with Elon Musk, and that these people in Silicon Valley are going to benefit from Trump's economy. And he says, I have concerns. And like I said, back when Mark Zuckerberg, he and I think Jeff Bezos, they were at the inauguration. They were all sitting in a row together. These big tech oligarchs is what I like to call them. And I'm sorry, but I don't believe Mark Zuckerberg when he says, oh, I'm sorry, it was a mistake to censor individuals. It was a mistake to have all these fact checkers. I don't believe Mark Zuckerberg when he says that. He's butt kissing Donald Trump. Because he doesn't want to be held accountable for the censorship. He should be held accountable. Section 230 should be addressed. This is, the difference between a publisher and a platform. Platforms, they're given more freedoms to operate as a platform rather than a publisher. A publisher has more parameters that they have to follow. These platforms were acting as publishers, so they should have been held to the publisher standards. Okay, so for example, a publisher, they have to attribute their information. They can't really lie. They're open to all kinds of lawsuits if they lie in their publication. Okay, or if there is you're open to lawsuits. Okay, so you have to attribute your information if you are publishing, and if you are editing material and publishing it. Okay, now the platforms were operating as publishers. Now, platforms, they're not held to the same standards. Somebody can't sue Facebook because somebody takes to the internet and writes a Facebook status about Helen. Helen has weird hair and smells really bad. You know what I mean? Helen can't then sue Facebook for allowing Susan to post that about Helen. Okay. They're exempt from that kind of legal challenge. It's because they're a platform and they're given, you know, kind of special treatment under Section 230, which needs to be addressed, because now they're acting as publishers because they are deciding what goes on and what does not go on social media. Okay, it's supposed to be a square, a public square of information, and that's how platforms, and that's why platforms are exempt from those kind of legal challenges. But they obviously aren't operating as platforms, but rather publishers. Okay, so they should be held to a higher standard, to the publisher standard, if that makes sense. Mark Zuckerberg, he is now butt kissing Donald Trump. You see, he's on Joe Rogan. He's talking about getting rid of the fact checking system. But turns out a meta engineer, an undercover journalist, talked with the meta engineer, Mug Club, and undercover journalist. This is Steven Crowder's operation. Talked with a meta engineer, and this meta engineer admits with his mouth, okay, admits out loud that they are abusing the H-1B system because they want cheap labor. Okay, now we know Elon Musk loves the cheap labor and the H-1Bs. We know that Vivek Ramaswamy and him kind of had a talk about this. And they're going to benefit from Trump's economy, just like you and I are going to benefit. Okay, and I think that Donald Trump really should be America first when it comes to everybody. And I fear, much like this kid I talked to, that Donald Trump is going to turn a blind eye and not look at what's going on over here with the big tech oligarchs, because they helped him, or Elon Musk helped him, get across the finish line. Actually, there was a quote from the kid that I spoke to. He says, 2016 Trump, he infamously said, "I don't need your money. All the donors, they're out there booing me. It's because I won't take their money because I don't need their money." So Elon Musk comes in and he donates this big lump sum. Okay. Was that hush money essentially? Okay. For Donald Trump to turn a blind eye to what they're doing with the H-1B visa system. If we're going to be America first, we need to be America first across the board. Okay. So not just the corporations that are left leaning, but also the corporations that appear to be right-leaning, your Elon Musk, your Mark Zuckerberg, and things like that. I think that they're using Donald Trump's kindness. He's just a kind individual against him, and they're butt kissing. And I'm America first through and through. And if you're abusing the H-1B visa system, you need to be held accountable under the law. Okay. The fact that you have a meta engineer admitting that out loud with his mouth, that they're abusing that system, there should be some sort of law, some sort of consequence for that. Much like Mark Zuckerberg should have seen consequences under this Trump administration for censoring Americans. There's people on the right who don't think Donald Trump is going hard enough. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't think that he's going hard enough. And the endorsement to Lindsey Graham, what the hell was that? Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat City's 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. I interviewed a young man at this event that drew thousands, if not 3,000, 1,000 to 3,000 people. Some people say 5,000. I don't know. I left about like 2 o'clock, so maybe even more people came afterwards. But I would say 3,000 plus, maybe. I'm really bad at those numbers, so that's why I went up to a security officer, and at noon, where that was right when it started, I approached a security officer, asked him, "Hey, how many people are you guys supposed to be protecting today?" And he says, "Oh, there's at least 1,000 right now." And there were more people coming in. It was just packed, much more than the hands-off rally that was held earlier, or actually over the weekend, right outside BCPA. Now that was about hundreds, I would say, judging by pictures and videos. That was about hundreds of people. And we know that those were funded by nonprofit organizations like MoveOn.org. You guys can go check it out. It was started by Democrat Party in when Bill Clinton was being impeached, and has been funded by George Soros ever since. Okay, and they use these online apparatus, like it's a Democrat apparatus, and they use these online chat groups to get together, and people are out there and they're paid as nonprofit employees to go out and do these hands-off rallies that were happening across the country. Okay, I asked all of the attendees here. It was all very organic. I saw Charlie Kirk on TikTok, and I wanted to go. My friend invited me. Very organic, grassroots crowd out there. And some of them weren't on the right. Some of them were on the left, and they genuinely wanted to hear Charlie Kirk speak and genuinely wanted to have a conversation with him. And there was one young man I spoke to, and he was on the right. And he brought up very, very great talking points with Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk shut him down. I still recommend you listen to Charlie Kirk. This isn't gonna, destroy, my perspective on Charlie Kirk. I think that he's got great ideas. I think that he's blind when it comes to issues like the H-1B visas, Elon Musk. I've always said to you that I don't trust Elon Musk. And I think that he has ulterior motives here with this big donation to President Donald Trump. I'm glad that he's going to be out in just a couple months or so. It was like 180 days, I think he had left in Doge, because that Doge program is going to be shut down once they do the work that they have to do. Now, Donald Trump his economy is going to benefit everybody, including the Elon Musks, including Mark Zuckerberg. And one thing that we have to note here is the H-1B visa system, okay? And how Meta, this engineer, I'm going to get to it later, he had been to an undercover reporter that they were abusing the H-1B visa system. And I hope that Donald Trump doesn't turn a blind eye, because we should be America first. They should the way the H-1B visa system works. These companies shouldn't be, they should try everything they can, or try very, very hard to get Americans to fill those jobs first. And then they go to H-1B, because it's a specialty program where you have to pull from other countries if they have special skills or abilities, and you can't find anybody in America to fill that role. And they're abusing these H-1B visa systems, these big tech bros, okay? And I would say that Elon Musk is a big tech oligarch. And he has everything to gain from Donald Trump being president, which is why I think he made the big donation. But we have to be careful, because Elon Musk, he shouldn't be exempt from doing America first things. Okay, H-1B visa system, it shouldn't be abused, and he shouldn't be abusing it. And I'm gonna get to here. The young man, he told me that Charlie Kirk told him that it's because you don't have a girlfriend. These guys come up here, and it's clear that they don't have girlfriends or whatever. And he kind of just shut him down and laughed him off. But the H-1B visa system definitely needs to be addressed. I hope Donald Trump, just because, they're butt kissing now, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, I hope that just because they're butt kissing, he doesn't turn a blind eye to what they're doing with that system. I also hope that this escalation in the Middle East stops, because it seems like under President Donald Trump, this escalation is getting worse. And there has been a wave of backlash from the political right recently, because he endorsed Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. And what do we know about Lindsey Graham? He loves to bomb Iran, because they all make money off of war. So I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button, share this out. Zuck is backpedaling. Yes, ditto. Yeah, I'm upset that Donald Trump endorsed Lindsey Graham, and I'm worried about Iran and the escalation over there. And I've told you this before. It's the Yankees and the Cowboys is how I refer to this establishment party. Okay, you've got the Yankees, your Bill Clintons, your Hillary Clintons, the finance bros, right? Wall Street. You've got those guys, and we're going after the Yankees, the establishment there. But are we going to go after the rhinos? Are we going to go after the cowboys who have made their billions and millions off of the military-industrial complex? Nikki Haley, your Lindsey Grahams. Are we going to go after them? I want to see us go after them. And this guy I talked to, he says in 2016, Donald Trump said, look, I don't want your money. I don't need your money, to the Silicon Valley guys. And the Silicon Valley guys are, your Mark Zuckerberg types, the tech bros, as I like to call them. And back then in 2016, he said, I don't need your money. I don't want your money. But now with Elon Musk in the picture and the donation during his 2024 campaign, I'm worried that he's not going to hold those tech bros accountable like he is the Yankees. Okay, the Cowboys, they're grabbing onto this tech bro or technology and the AI, and this is something that Republicans are really grabbing onto. And I think that should be all America first. These AI data centers, things like that. It shouldn't be all H-1B visa system, or all H-1B visa foreign labor, okay, just because it's cheaper for them to do this, okay, because they're holding their immigration status over their heads. That's what the Democrats do, okay. They have the subsidized, what do I call it, the subsidized poor in these nonprofit organizations, and a lot of them are, poor, and they're subsidized by government dollars, and some of them have illegal immigration status, and they're making money in the nonprofit sector, okay? And this is all finance and, exploiting the system, the tax system through the nonprofit organizations, okay? And that's the apparatus of the Democrat Party. Over here on the right, you have the same kind of thing going on, but really it's the, serving on the boards, serving in these companies, the military-industrial complex, these tech companies, and they're going to exploit the system as well and, hire H-1B visa workers instead of Americans. And they're not going to be America first. We know Lindsey Graham is an America first a candidate at all, and yet Donald Trump threw his endorsement behind him. This is not to say I'm anti-Donald Trump. The young man also told me he really liked the tariffs and the policy surrounding Donald Trump's tariffs, and that is America. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. I am going to get to this undercover Mug Club journalist went and found a meta engineer to find out what was going on with the H-1B visas. And it turns out big tech abuses the H-1B visas. We knew this. Donald Trump endorsed Lindsey Graham. We know Lindsey Graham is an America first. And there was some real concern from this young man I talked to at the Charlie Kirk event. And Charlie Kirk kind of just shut him down. I didn't. I talked to him, and we did an interview. The tape is all muddled, so I couldn't play the audio for you. It just wouldn't sound good. So I am just paraphrasing what he said. He, talked about Iran. He talked about the escalation in the Middle East. It looks like things are escalating there. I know things are escalating there. We had planned a trip to Israel, and the war is escalating. We can't go, right? Because things are escalating over there, and that's not America first. We're, funding these wars. And believe me, I am the first person to say that we have an obligation to protect Israel, okay? But should we be funneling money into this war and going on the offensive? I don't know about that, right? I think that Lindsey Graham wants to bomb Iran, okay? I think that he wants to do that. And much of the cowboys, as I've told you before, there's two parts of the political establishment. There's the Yankees, your Bill Clintons, Hillary Clintons, Barack Obamas, and then you've got your Nikki Haley's, Lindsey Graham, these rhinos who are not America first, and they want to throw us into every single war. I do think that Donald Trump is doing a good job. And this guy I talked to, he said, I think Donald Trump's tariff policy is the first really America first policy that I've seen come out of this administration so far. And we're a few months into this administration, so I'm expecting some results at this point. But he goes, that's the first America First policy I've really seen so far. And he goes, of course abortion is wrong. He goes, of course there's only two genders, but this is all the social crap that we shouldn't be focused on. You know, I like Donald Trump's executive orders. Okay, they're signed, done, over with. Now let's talk about the foreign wars. Now let's talk about the H-1B visas being abused by these tech oligarchs in Silicon Valley. And let's hold Mark Zuckerberg accountable for censoring Americans. And I hope that Donald Trump doesn't turn a blind eye to these guys just because they're kissing his butt now. You know, they went to his inauguration. And I really liked talking with this guy. He knew his stuff. I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. The Democrat Party used to burn crosses in the yards to intimidate Black people. Nowadays, they burn Teslas to intimidate those that don't agree with them. The Democrat Party is the party of hate and violence. Yeah, to be honest with you, I've been to a lot of political events. I've been to leading rallies. Specifically, I remember going to one where J.B. Pritzker was talking, and he was on like his working family's bus tour, and I went actually as a counter protester to that. The people on the right were very, very chill. They showed up with Darren Bailey signs, and they, you know, were trying to have conversations. I actually had one guy get in my face. I was minding my own business. I was just holding my Darren Bailey sign and counter protesting, right, or protesting. J.B. Pritzker's presence. Darren Bailey was running. I wanted to, you know, protest J.B. Pritzker's presence in Bloomington Normal. I think he was at Miller Park. And anytime the right comes out to counter protest, which is rare, okay, or to protest an event that the left is having, which is rare just in general. The BCPA, I highly doubt that there were counter protesters there. I didn't hear of any where they were at this hands-off rally. I didn't see any pictures of people on the right that were there with Trump signs. Excuse me. I gotta drink some more of this. I've been talking. Look at this mug. Look how awesome. Make America great again. I hope he does. We're a few months into this administration, and my hopes are high. I think he's doing well with the Russia conflict, the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Obviously, we're still in that ceasefire, the temporary ceasefire. So I think he's doing a good job there. But the Iran thing, that really bothers me, that things are escalating over there, and I think that we're going to have some sort of huge war break out in the Middle East, and I'm just so sick of it. Like, let's America first. Like, stop focusing on this Middle East crap. And yes, we have an obligation to protect Israel, but we shouldn't be fighting Israel's war, okay? And like going to war for Israel, you know what I mean? That's not we should be protecting them. But fighting and like going on the offensive here and like egging this war on is only going to benefit your Nikki Haley's and your Lindsey Grahams. Anyway, what was I talking about? Sorry, squirrel. But yes, they are the party of hate. You're so right, Larry. People on the right, whenever I see them go and they protest these left-leaning rallies, they're never holding up signs that say, we hate you. They were holding up signs of Elon Musk and Donald Trump making out, which was really bizarre. A lot of these protesters, they held up signs that had, you know, curse words on them, and you know, that's just not what I see from the right. I've never seen the right go out and be violent, abusive, or hateful. They quite literally, these counter protesters, 50 of them, or they were protesting Charlie Kirk's presence on campus. They had signs, you know, with curse words, and one of the signs actually said, "Redbirds hate you." Which is just ridiculous. Now, nobody on the right really egged them on. A lot of people tried to get them to talk about who John Pork was. John Pork is an internet meme. It's something in internet culture, and I don't really understand it because it's dumb. He's a fictitious character, and they were screaming, "Free John Pork, free John Pork, free John Pork." And I don't know what that means. So I like, as a reporter out there, I was trying to understand what John Pork, who he was, what he stood for, and like I was trying to understand this internet culture. But really, what it was nonsensical crap that they were shouting on the top of their lungs, and they didn't understand why they were saying it either. And that is a clear sign that they were mentally ill. Okay, so there were mentally ill people in the back protesting Charlie. Like, I literally tried to have a conversation with these people, and you can't. Like, have you ever tried to have a conversation with somebody who, and I'm just being straight up honest here. If you've ever had a conversation with somebody who quite literally is mentally ill and does not have the mental capacity to have a conversation, that's exactly what it was like. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Yes, the young man I spoke to, I thought he was treated kind of unfair. It was kind of unfair of Charlie Kirk to shut him down right away, because there are concerns from the political right. After Donald Trump especially endorsed Republican Lindsey Graham. Like, come on. Lindsey Graham has everything to gain from us going to war with Iran and us being in the Middle East. And folks, the Bible says, don't curse Israel. If you curse Israel, you'll be cursed. I'm not saying that we shouldn't defend Israel. She is our greatest ally. Israel is very important. Obviously, as a Christian, I am a Christian Zionist. I believe that Israel is a Jewish state and it should remain one. But we can't be getting into war with Iran. This is not America first. Also, what's not America first is turning a blind eye to the tech oligarchs, your Mark Zuckerbergs, your Jeff Bezos, just because they went to your inauguration and they're butt kissing you, Donald Trump. You shouldn't turn a blind eye to the tech bros who are abusing the H-1B visa system. And I want to get into that right now. Actually, there was a Mug Club undercover journalist, and this is a clip, very James O'Keefe style, where his name's Ben Tesser. Ben Tesser, he is the technical lead of trust and safety at Meta, and he told the journalist that the H-1B visa system is actually a scam. Okay, so I want to play this clip. And I'm going to get into what the H-1B visa system is, and how big tech oligarchs are abusing it, how Meta's abused it, and how Elon Musk is a proponent of this. Actually, Vivek Ramaswamy and I believe Elon Musk, they had like a falling out over the H-1B visa system. I am anti-H-1B visa system. I think that we need to fix it. It is a scam right now, and there is no reason for this H-1B visa system to even be a thing, because it's so far gone. It used to be a system where employers would seek immigrant workers in special occupations. Okay, so these are the best and the brightest, and or fashion models, or people who have special distinguished merit and ability. Okay, and you can't find anybody in the United States. We're talking like top of the top of the top of the surgeons, and nobody in the United States can do what this surgeon does in India. Okay, so this is what the system is supposed to be about, but we are so far gone. The H-1B visa system is being used by these big tech oligarchs for cheap labor. And that is what the left does. They love the cheap labor. They actually love the subsidized poor, okay, in the nonprofit sector. So they operate in the public sector and in the nonprofit sector. Okay, the left and the Democrats, they love those operations. Now, what the right, or the cowboys, as I like to call them, your Lindsey Graham's, Nikki Haley's, they operate in tech and the military industrial complex. Okay, so we're gonna play this clip. This is Ben Tesser, questioned by a Mug Club undercover reporter. Here we go.
With a lot of them, and apparently they're all getting jobs, and he can't get one.
It's a scam.
What do you mean?
What they do, so the H-1B visas, these companies are only supposed to be able to hire people after they've tried to hire U.S. people and have been unsuccessful. In order to like get an H-1B visa for someone from another country, you have to first put out your job listing to people, American citizens, and say, we couldn't find any qualified American citizens for this job. So we have to get this guy from India, and that's why he needs it. But what they do is they just like interview a bunch of Americans so that they could pay less for the guy from overseas.
So who's getting prioritized, Americans or immigrants with H-1B?
Immigrants go from the United States.
What about like the Tim Pool or like Stephen Crowder?
I mean, I haven't had to deal with any escalations from them personally, thank God. But
Are they on Facebook? Are they on the
Ben
special?
Shapiro.
Yeah, are they all on like a special ban list or?
They're all probably on the special list. The ones who are buying the laptop.
Oh yeah. What about that? Oh yeah, you guys censored that.
We censored that because it taxed materials and it's like not really relevant. It like had nothing to do actually with politics. It was just like this guy's son has a messed up personal life. Probably in no other position in my life will I have as much power to influence discourse and like fairness of communication.
I don't know if you saw in the news, Mark's like, oh, we're going to get rid of fact checking. And like, what I spent all of last year doing was like building the fact checking system.
Wait, so just to confirm, you work for Meta, right?
In order for them to like be the AI powerhouse they want to be, they need to build power plants to support the data centers. And in order to do the nuclear power plants or whatever, they need government approval. And the way Trump works, unless he does his ass, you're not going to shit.
Okay, so it's really important at the end there. It's kind of hard to hear because there's a lot of dinner music and whatnot because this is an undercover reporter. Okay, so he's the technical lead at Meta, and he told an undercover journalist that the H-1B visa system is a scam and it intentionally favors foreign applicants over hardworking, educated, skilled American workers. Okay, so I'll get to the H-1B visa system, and then I want to get to these data centers and how they need nuclear power plants, and the government has to approve those nuclear power plants. And they're not going to get approved unless you kiss Donald Trump's butt. Okay, so that is what the big tech oligarchs are doing. Mark Zuckerberg, your Elon Musk types. Okay, they're going to kiss Donald Trump's butt so that way they can build these nuclear or these data centers and get these nuclear power plants going to, provide the energy for these data centers. And they're going to kiss his butt because they want these built to enhance AI in, the tech world, okay, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think that it's, it depends on where you line up. Me, a conservative, I want to conserve, okay, and if they're exploiting the H-1B visa system, so let's get to that. I don't want these guys to win. I don't want the tech oligarchs to win and to build out their companies, especially when they're abusing the H-1B visa system and they're not being very America first, okay? We should be prioritizing hardworking, educated, skilled American workers. So according to the Labor Department, the H-1B program applies to employers seeking to hire non-immigrant aliens as workers in specialty occupations or as fashion models of distinguished merit and ability. So this is after you've tried to get your educated, skilled, hardworking American. Then you can go and find somebody through the H-1B visa program. A specialty occupation is one that requires the application of a body of highly specialized knowledge and the attainment of at least a bachelor's degree or its equivalent. Okay, so these have to be very educated people. The intent of H-1B provisions is to help employers who cannot otherwise obtain needed business skills and abilities from the U.S. workforce by authorizing the temporary employment of qualified individuals who are not otherwise authorized to work in the United States. Okay, so these are illegals, and they're prioritizing illegals over, and they're favoring illegals over American workers. And the reason why is because it's cheap. Okay, it's cheap labor. Okay, the same with the nonprofit organizations. They exploit the Black community, these poor individuals. And immigrants as well to do their bidding for them in the nonprofit sector and in the public sector. It's the subsidized poor. Okay, so the left does the same thing, and the right is doing it with or I'll call them the right. Really, they're just the establishment is doing it over here. The cowboys are doing it over here, as I like to call them, with the military-industrial complex in the tech sector. Okay, so according to Ben Tesser, these companies are only allowed to hire people after they've tried to hire people in the United States and have been unsuccessful. Ben Tesser, the tech guy, the tech lead for Meta, admitted that companies are required to post the job to American citizens and are only allowed to use the visa if they cannot find Americans to fill the role. Quote, this is what Tesser said to the undercover journalist. What they do, they interview a bunch of Americans, and so they can pay less for the guy overseas. So ultimately, they choose the H-1B fella, some guy from India, right? Because they can exploit his labor, and have cheap labor. So he also claimed when it comes to equal footing, they will always hire the foreign applicant because it's cheaper, and they prioritize the immigrants over the Americans, and it gives the employer more control over the worker because they work harder, because they're beholden to the visa to remain in the country. They want to stay in the country. So it's really holding this immigration status over their head as an employer, and this is what's wrong with the left. So the right shouldn't be doing it either. And I want to be very clear about this. Mark Zuckerberg is not a friend. Elon Musk, I've told you before, and even Vivek Ramaswamy, who the young man I interviewed at the Charlie Kirk event brought up. He brought up Vivek Ramaswamy. He goes, I like a lot of things Vivek Ramaswamy says. I like a lot of things that Elon Musk is doing with Doge, but he's going to benefit from it, and his big tech buddies are going to benefit from it. And I'm not anti-Trump, and maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe Donald Trump is totally aware of this, and he's not going to turn a blind eye to these big tech oligarchs, and he's going to hold them accountable, and he's going to make them not abuse, and he's going to make sure that they're not abusing the H-1B visa system. If they're not abusing the H-1B visa system, I've got no problem with these tech companies and their startups in Silicon Valley being successful. They're doing it honestly, but if they're holding people's visas over their heads, that's wrong. When the left does it, and it's wrong when these people, I don't even really want to call them conservatives because they're not. Conservatives, they don't like the AI. If you ask a conservative, how do you feel about AI? A lot of conservatives will tell you it's creepy. So Tesser, he confirmed that there is a special list for conservatives like Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder. Although Mark Zuckerberg has claimed that he believes it's wrong to censor Americans, Tesser confirmed that it's fine with him, his job, keeping his job. He wants to keep his job because he will be in no other position in his life where he's going to have this much power and influence over discourse and fairness of communication. So he wants to keep his job. Okay, he doesn't want to leave Meta because he thinks that he's got power and influence. So although Mark Zuckerberg has said that he's anti-censoring Americans, this guy who's working for Meta is pretty much admitting to censoring Americans, okay? And he likes it. He likes the power. He likes the influence over discourse, this tech lead. So, Mark Zuckerberg, liar. He's kissing Donald Trump's butt. He went to his inauguration. He's saying that he's getting rid of the fact-checking system and that he believes censoring Americans is wrong. He's not America first. He's exploiting the H-1B visa system, as you heard his tech lead just admit to you, to this undercover journalist. He's also, this undercover journalist, exposed that Tesser, or somebody who works for Meta, wants to stay at Meta because he has power over discourse, which means censorship. Okay, so you, the American worker, of course, you're subsidizing all of this. Your taxpayer dollars go towards this H-1B visa system. You pay for this system to exist, the administrative roles to administer this program. So you're subsidizing all of this crap that goes on. Really, it's human trafficking, and it's at its core form. Okay, that's really what I can explain. You're exploiting people for their labor, and you're holding their visas over their heads to get them to work harder. This is not America first. We should be prioritizing hardworking, educated, American skilled workers. And to be honest with you, I'm not a fan of the tech jobs. I want the manufacturing. I want our culture to get back to making things, making products, real tangible things. So according to the left, we need migrants for unskilled labor to pick our crops, right? As Jasmine Crockett would say, we need the unskilled labor, migrants for our unskilled labor, but we also need them for our skilled labor. So it's unclear at this point what the American worker is even for. Okay, if you've got people on the right and the left exploiting migrants for their unskilled labor, and for skilled labor, what the hell? You know what I mean? Like, according to the elites in power, what do you need the American worker for? I'm for America first, and I hope Donald Trump doesn't turn a blind eye to these oligarchs, these big tech oligarchs. I hope that he holds them accountable, just like he should hold the left accountable for exploiting the poor, the subsidized poor, the people in these nonprofit sectors. All right, I got to take a quick break. Yeah, we talked about that woman yesterday. Remember, she was from UIC or the University of Illinois Chicago. Okay. She was from there. She was with United, I don't know, some sort of nonprofit organization, and she's the executive director, I'm sure. And she admitted that her immigration status, she admitted that she was here illegally, okay? And she says, I'm a queer immigrant, right? She said that's on live TV, on television. She broadcasted it. The left does the same thing. I want to be very clear. And, I struggle to say that the people in the tech sphere of Silicon Valley, that they're people on the right. I struggle to say that because they're really not. They're not conservatives. But the people on the left Democrats do this all the time in the nonprofit sector and in the public sector, where they exploit the subsidized poor. And they have been doing this for years. Okay, so I got to take a quick break, but we're going to be back. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Good morning. Hey, appreciate you. His tech jobs guy. Yes. That won't build Illinois. Yeah. They're all about subsidizing the data centers, the artificial intelligence. It's really weird. And really what we need to get to is what we used to do, as Americans, is produce some products, we need to produce products, and we need to sell those products, and we need to just be honest, make an honest living, right? And have Americans making products and earning their money honestly. That's what we need to get back to. So nice headline, unbelievable. Yeah, Illinois State University sold Satan. I didn't even get to that. I'll get to that. So Illinois State University, Satan told me that he put a curse on Charlie Kirk. Yes, so Charlie Kirk was at Illinois State University, and I approached this guy in a Satan costume. I asked him who he was dressed as. He says, Satan, I'm the devil. And then I asked him, what's your name? And he wouldn't tell me. And then I asked him, can you take your mask off and talk to me a little bit? And he says, no. So then I said, okay, so why are you here today? And he said, to put a curse on Charlie Kirk. And he actually did go up to the microphone and put a curse on Charlie Kirk, or try to. And I said, well, what did the curse sound like? Can you tell me what the curse was? And he goes, I don't want to put a curse on you. You seem nice. And I said, don't worry, I'm protected by Jesus. And then he walked away. But yeah, so he went up to the microphone, said something in Latin, I guess, to Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk said, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. And then, yeah, that was about it. So, and he had some Satanist buddies. An Illinois State University professor had said Satanism is the superior religion to somebody, and it is the better religion is the word that she used. And she was fighting with some guy, he had blonde hair, and she was fighting with this fella about, the Satanists that were on campus there. And he said, really, you believe that this is okay? You believe that Satanism is a good thing? And she goes, actually, I think it's the better of the religion. And I was like, my jaw dropped. I was like, do these people not realize what satanic, like what Satanism actually is? Satanism is the belief that murdering, like sacrificing babies to the devil. Okay, and this is through abortion, which shouldn't shock you. Sacrificing babies. Actually, we're coming up on Easter in just a couple of weeks. And I've told you this before, Ishtar. Okay, this is a pagan deity, a satanic deity that the pagans used to worship. and her name was Ishtar. Okay, so Easter happens in the springtime, right? And they've kind of taken it, the pagans, Easter. We celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. I don't even call Easter anymore. I call it Resurrection Sunday. So they call it Easter, and it shouldn't shock you that Ishtar is the goddess of fertility according to the pagan religion and the Satanist religion. Okay, so Ishtar, the bunnies, the eggs, that's all fertility. Okay, mate like bunnies. Have you heard about that before? Yeah, if you put two bunnies in an area, you're gonna have seven. Okay, so the bunnies come from that, or fertility. They're a sign of fertility, and then also the eggs, obviously a sign of fertility. Okay, the chickens hatch. It's they're born. Okay, now it's all about mating. Okay, so what the pagans would do, they would mate. Okay, the humans would get together and they would get pregnant. Okay, 9 months later, April or March is usually where April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. That's 9 months. Okay, so 9 months from the spring, Christmas. Okay, they would sacrifice them around the birth of Jesus Christ or around Christmas. So the pagans actually worked their holidays around the traditional Christian holidays. And that's why people call Easter. I don't, knowing that information. I call it Resurrection Day, because they called it Easter, and they try to get people to celebrate their pagan holiday with the Easter bunny and with the eggs, and that's like fertility and everything like that. So Satanism is not a game. No, Satanism is all about, and the best word I could come up with it, memeing Christianity. So they try to undermine Christianity, and they take principles from Christianity. And the devil knows the Bible better than most Christians, right? He knows. He doesn't deny God's existence. He knows God's real. But what he does, he warps Christianity. Same with the rainbow, Noah's Ark. I've talked about this. Noah's Ark. And the storm, and then there was the rainbow. This is the new covenant. The gays, they obviously took this as a symbol of pride. Sodom and Gomorrah, this was the whole reason for the flood. Homosexuality, and the sin that was going on in those cities. And God wiped it all out, and then he said, this is a new covenant of promise. And they're, taking that and exploiting it, and they're saying, oh, well, God's promise is that, we get to be gay. No. Or we get to sin and live sinful lifestyles. No, that's not what the covenant was all about. The title of today's show is Illinois State University's Satan told me that he put a curse on Charlie Kirk. Yeah, so I interviewed Satan. I can't believe I that's a first. I was on Illinois State University's campus. There were several kids hanging around this one, and I'm kind of surprised that this individual had friends. But he was dressed in satanic garb. Okay, so like a robe with I think it's called a pentagram. I don't know. It's like a star. It's creepy. I don't know. But he was running around with a goat mask, and I approached him. I asked him, who are you dressed as? And he says, the devil. And I said, okay, can you tell me your name, your actual name? And he goes, nope. And he didn't want to talk to me. And then I said, okay, can you take your mask off and do a quick interview with me as to why you're here? And he goes, nope. And I said, well, can you tell me why you're here? And then he said, well, I wanted to put a curse on Charlie Kirk, and I did. And I go, okay, well, what was the curse all about? Can you repeat the curse for me? And he goes, I don't want to repeat it because I don't want to accidentally curse you. You seem nice. I was like, don't worry about it. I've got the protection of Jesus. I'm protected by the blood. That's what I said. And then he walked away. But I interviewed another girl. I acknowledged that she was wearing a cross around her neck, and the satanic guy walked by her, and she looked at him while she was doing an interview with me, and I said, does that bother you? And she goes, no. She goes, it doesn't bother me. And she goes, I've got the protection of Jesus. And she goes, I hope one day he comes to the light. And I was like, wow, very, very mature response coming from an ISU college student. And I talked to quite a few college students, quite a few high schoolers. This was what really surprised me, was that there was a ton of like private Christian school, high school students there, and they were all there with their buddies. A pentagram. Yeah, I don't follow satanic religion so closely. I guess he was wearing a pentagram, but he had a couple of friends, and I saw some individuals, commenting, there was just one. Okay, one is enough for me to be like, okay, this is ridiculous. Like this side, he was walking around and he was, he wasn't really hanging out with the protesters who were protesting Charlie Kirk's presence on campus, but he had some buddies. But what was really concerning is that this professor, later she told me straight up that she was a professor at the university, and she taught the students there at the university. And she told, and I heard her talking with the man. He had blonde hair. And they were having some words and kind of fighting a little bit. And I started recording. And she had shouted out at him that actually Satanism is the better religion. They were arguing over the satanic religion. He goes, actually, are you serious? Are you like pro satanic Satanism? She goes, actually, Satanism is the better religion. That's what she said. And that individual is teaching the youth of America. So she wouldn't give me her name. I found out that she was a professor, which was wild to me. I was like, what? That's crazy. I do want to get to this story. We talked about, of course, the Meta tech lead. He was caught on undercover camera. And clearly, they are censoring conservatives still. They're on a special list, despite Mark Zuckerberg claiming that he believes that censoring Americans is wrong. This guy, Ben Tesser, he confirmed that he's totally fine with keeping his job because in no other position in his life would he be able to have this much power and influence over discourse and communication. So, yeah, Mark Zuckerberg, I think he's a liar. He's probably pro censorship, and they're probably still doing it. Actually, in fact, I know they're still doing it because I'm still banned on Facebook. I still can't do things on Facebook because I'm in Facebook jail. So I want to take a second and let's shift gears. Let's talk about this woman. And when I was at the Charlie Kirk event, I asked the students, they all wanted to talk about the social issues. The only individual who I interviewed, he got shut down by Charlie Kirk, actually, and he wanted to talk about foreign wars. He wanted to talk about the tariff policy. He wanted to talk, and he was well-versed in politics, well-versed in current events, and he had some words about the Trump administration and how he wants 2016 Trump back, where he didn't need the donations from the people of Silicon Valley or the people like Elon Musk. And I've always said, I'm not a fan of Elon Musk. I don't think he's literally Hitler. Okay. I think that he's a guy who makes a lot of money and wants to make more money. And he saw an opportunity with Donald Trump and is trying to exploit it. And I hope that Donald Trump doesn't turn a blind eye to his company or other companies, guys that he's friends with, these tech bros. I hope he doesn't turn a blind eye to those guys abusing the H-1B visa system and not being America first. And let's just hope that he addresses the H-1B visa system abuses. Donald Trump, I'm sure he will. I'm going to give him time, but we're a few months in and I have high expectations. I also don't like the endorsement of Lindsey Graham and the escalation of Iran, of going to war with Iran in the Middle East. I don't want to be in any more wars. Okay. You promised peace, Donald. You got to give us peace. Okay. So for this story, I want to talk about the DNA and how there is just male DNA in the bones in every single cell of your body. Okay, no matter how much hormone therapy you take. Earlier, I talked about this girl that I interviewed at the Charlie Kirk event, and she truly believes that there's a certain amount of testosterone blockers and there's a certain amount of estrogen one could take that makes this biological advantage obsolete, okay, in female sports. So, the man who blocks his testosterone for X amount of years and takes enough estrogen, he won't have a biological advantage over women. And that's just a lie from the pits of hell, okay, because every little body cell that you've got in your body consists of male DNA, okay? And I talked to the Central Catholic kids, and they were like, look, it's just wrong. It's not fair. It's not fair to men. It's not fair to women. We need to have them separated. So many will call this a violation of consumer protection laws, while others call it an assault on women's rights. This is why Texas Attorney Ken Paxton, Attorney General Ken Paxton, is investigating whether this is the case when it comes to this woman. She was in a female USA fencing competition. She took a knee because she didn't want to fight the guy, or she didn't want to fence the guy with the male DNA in his body. Okay. She didn't want to do that because, trans women shouldn't be allowed to compete in female sports, biologically female sports. Okay. Bottom line, she didn't want to get hurt. Okay. So Ken Paxton is now investigating whether this case, this is the case in this, or whether there was a violation of consumer protection laws. And this is really interesting how Ken Paxton is going about this. He's done this before. According to Fox News, Turner's decision, so the woman's decision to take a knee, she received a black card and ultimately was expelled from the event earlier this month. And the USA fencing transgender athlete policy has been thrusted into the spotlight after this, expulsion of this fencing, this biological female fencer. Paxton said in a statement to officials, "We're looking into whether the organization broke Texas state law." Paxton's probe would look into uncover these documents to U.S. or related to USA fencing, potentially engaging in false, deceptive, or misleading acts and practices. So, did they market this as a USA women's fencing competition? And if they did market it as a women's fencing competition, that's false advertising because it's not. It's deceptive. It's misleading. And he's going to try to get them on this consumer protection law that they've got in the state of Texas, which I think is just genius. Okay, if you can't get them here with Donald Trump's federal policy, the executive order, get them here with the consumer protection laws. Okay, so USA Fencing, this is a quote, is on the wrong side of history from Paxton. He says this, and potentially on the wrong side of the law due to violations of the Texas consumer protection laws. He said this in a statement. USA Fencing's policies are not potentially illegal, but also, or not only potentially illegal, but are also insulting to young women like Stephanie Turner, who have sacrificed so much and dedicated countless hours to compete and succeed in competitions. The organization has doubled down on this insanity of letting men compete against women unfairly, right? And they've doubled down, and they claim that they're going to do this all in the name of inclusivity, and they're creating safe spaces for men and women, the same nonsense. Here's what they say, the organization. USA Fencing enacted our current transgender and non-binary athlete policy in 2023. The policy was designed to expand access to the sport of fencing and create inclusive and safe spaces. The policy is based on the principle that everyone should have the ability to participate in sports and was based upon research available of the day. So these people truly believe that, like I said, with the girl at ISU, they truly, truly believe that there's enough hormone blockers out there, that there's enough hormone therapies out there to literally change the biological makeup of a male into a female. They truly believe that, which is bogus. We understand that the conversation on equity and inclusion pertaining to transgender participation in sports is evolving. This is so foolish, considering that the player had a place to compete. Okay, he's a man, he has a place to compete, and he was competing in that sphere for a long time. And just like the kid from Central Catholic said to me at the Charlie Kirk event, Kat, it's very simple. He goes, if they can't compete and if they're no good in the men's division, they shouldn't try to change their gender to, win medals and competitions. They should just focus on getting better at the sport that they're in and in the competition in the place they compete, which is the males division. They should get better at the males division, okay? They created a policy that allows one sex to dominate at sports. Okay, and that's insane. This organization has created policy that allows for men, only men, to dominate in sports. And that's insane. And they claim that that's inclusive, but really it's excluding half of the population, women. Okay, so the only people in the men's division, obviously men are dominating in the men's division, but they're also dominating in the women's division. So you're erasing women from dominating and from being able to compete. And USA Fencing, they say this: we will always err on the side of inclusion, and we're committed to amending the policy as more relevant evidence-based research emerges or as policy changes take effect in the wider Olympic and Paralympic movement. What total buffoons. Okay, idiots. These are idiots. Erring on the side of inclusion is not the same thing as erring on the side of morality and logic. Logically, men, if you are born a man, every little part of your body, your cells in your body, are male. Okay, so that's erring on the side of logic and morality. It's immoral to have women compete against men. It's unsafe and it's immoral. So these people would rather be politically correct than factually correct, and it's deranged. And women should have a place to compete. Okay, bottom line. Nonetheless, they probably broke state law with the whole consumer protection thing by advertising this as a women's sport, and they weren't clear in their advertising and clear with their language. So they're probably going to end up learning from their mistake here, okay, with Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton on the case. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Hey, go ahead and smash that like button. Good morning. Peace through strength. Peace through strength. Some encouraging words there, David Paul Blumenshine. Yes, peace through strength. You know, there was a lot of numbers out at the Charlie Kirk event yesterday, and you know, there's a strength, and I really do think that the country is coming together. There wasn't a divide like the media will try to tell you. 3,000 plus people, they were all kind of intermingled, maybe people on the left, a little bit, mostly people on the right with the MAGA hats and the white hats and the red hats, just a sea of white and red hats. Okay, so definitely blew the hands-off event that was held at the BCPA earlier this weekend out of the water. Okay, and unlike, you know, a Saturday afternoon, you know, where people are supposed to be spending time with their families, this was held on a college campus during a lunch hour, right, where people could go, and people showed up, and it was a grassroots movement. I want to be very clear, because you know, you have the different various nonprofit organizations partnering together for these hands-off rallies that took place over protests that took place over the weekend, and those aren't organic. Okay, this was clearly organic. I talked to kids that went. They said, Ryan invited me, Nick invited me, I saw him on TikTok. You know, this was very, very organic. And unlike most leftist demonstrations, they are not organic at all. It's a Democrat apparatus, and they function online in chat rooms, and then they meet together, and a lot of them are paid by these nonprofit sectors, and it's the subsidized poor, as I like to call them, where they're subsidized with taxpayer dollars, and they work in these nonprofit sectors. So, for example, the Immigration Project, I think here in Bloomington Normal, they received like over $500,000 or something like that, just in the course of 7 months. And this is a small nonprofit, okay, in Bloomington Normal. At least, you know, I thought it was small, but $500,000 is kind of a lot of money. They should be serving a lot of people, probably, but they're not. They're paying individuals on their payroll with that tax money. Okay, so the DHS, the Illinois Department of Human Services, they cut checks to this Immigration Project. It's called the Immigration Project. It's based in Bloomington Normal, and they cut checks to the tune of $500,000 in the course of 7 months, and they're paying all these people in this nonprofit. So that's garbage. I don't know about you, but that's dumb. And they all coordinate. And of course, like that's their job. It's their whole job to get people out. And they do politics because they rely on the government, and they rely so heavily on the government for their paychecks. Of course, they're going to get out on a Saturday and not spend time with their kids in the park. Of course, they're going to go and rally at these hands-off protests across the nation. And that's how you can tell it's just not grassroots, because these nonprofit organizations all coordinate together. And the reason why is because they rely so heavily on those government dollars, and they do politics first. We do life. Conservatives do life first, and then we do politics. They live for politics. Like that is their life. And this was just like, I saw it on TikTok. My friend invited me. I had a free lunch hour, and I went to go see Charlie Kirk speak, and I wanted to talk with him, and I wanted to hear him speak. So this was grassroots 100%. Go ahead, smash that like button. We are going to be talking a little bit about this note that was circulating on social media the other day. This is the Pride Club. This was a note. I don't know where this came from, but apparently, allegedly, there is an event happening today from 3:30 to 4:30 in room 233. Everybody's welcome. The Pride Club is hosting a panel discussion with medical professionals from the community on gender-affirming care. Wow. And this is happening in high school. So everybody's welcome. So I don't know about you, but I would check to see where your kids are at from 3:30 to 4:30 today. Because the Pride Club, they're going to have, gender affirming medical professionals there. Most likely they're going to be people from Planned Parenthood, I bet. Satanism is not a game. Yeah, it's not. You don't want to mess with it. But I had the protection of Jesus. I went up to this individual and talked to him. Now, I will say this. This was very interesting. Kind of supernatural. Where, and I don't know, maybe I'm being conspiracy theory or kind of looking into this a little too deep. As soon as I interviewed that Satanist kid, my audio stopped in all my other interviews, and my recording wasn't working. So I got some interviews, but some of them weren't. I couldn't use them because the audio stopped. So not saying that it was him, but I think it's kind of funny. As soon as after I interviewed him, all my other audio didn't work, and I was just like, "This is bogus." But yeah, that's just how Satan works. Good morning. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. A note has been circulating on social media, and I don't know what this is from. I'd imagine it's like some sort of brochure, but apparently today from 3:30 to 4:30 in room 233, the Pride Club, the Normal West Pride Club, is hosting a panel discussion with medical professionals from the community on gender-affirming care. And, quote, everyone is welcome, according to this pamphlet. So this is just really interesting. Medical professionals, I wonder what kind of medical professionals these individuals are. Are they from Planned Parenthood? Are those the type of medical professionals the Pride Club is hosting? So you might want to check in with your kids today, see if they are going to be going to this from 3:30 to 4:30 in room 233. But there's medical professionals who are going to be talking to your kids about transitioning and about really, really disturbing stuff. So like I said, most kids with gender dysphoria, I don't even really want to call them most kids, unless you have like this crazy leftist parent. Most kids, the parents are going to say, no, you're a girl. No, you're a boy. I grew up a tomboy. I had brothers growing up, and I wanted to wear his clothes, all the time. And I wanted to be just like my brother because I loved my brother. And I wanted to be like my dad when I was growing up. And I would wear boy clothes. I wanted to skateboard. I was a bit of a tomboy, and I'd love to grab worms out of the creek. I was just a tomboy. I grew out of it. Now you wouldn't catch me touching bugs. No. I like to think that I like to fish still, and I actually have my hubby worm the hook now. I don't like to stab the worm anymore, and you grow out of it. Okay, most kids with gender dysphoria, if you want to call it that, outgrow it. Most kids, yeah, they see their friends, they grow up with their siblings, they have an admiration of their siblings, and they want to be like the siblings. And that's just very natural. And it's up to the parents to say, no, you're a girl. No, you're a boy. This is why. Okay. And, provide them the science. So gender affirming drugs sterilize your kids, okay, before they're even old enough to understand what kind of permanent damage is being done to their bodies. Okay. Once you start getting on drugs, you'll never go back. Okay. And you just talk to some detransitioners. It's a nightmare. Talk to transitioners. They actually take, flesh from their arms to create body parts and genitalia. It's disgusting. And it's mutilation, quite literally. But I wonder if these Planned Parenthood medical professionals that are going to be having this discussion with your kids today at Normal West, I wonder if they're going to describe the types of gender affirming care, the side effects of gender affirming care, the side effects of estrogen, testosterone hormone therapy, puberty blockers and how they're permanent, surgical removals of their genitalia. Are they going to get into detail? Because I doubt it. They're just going to say, you can do it. Your child's going to outgrow their gender dysphoria. Okay. Don't go putting them in a dress, and don't go, putting them on puberty blockers before they even know what's really going on with their bodies. They want these people on drugs forever, obviously. Planned Parenthood, these medical professionals, because they're going to make a ton of money. They're the largest provider of these drugs, Planned Parenthood is. And I don't know who they're going to be talking with. I don't know if it's Planned Parenthood or not, but we're going to be right back. I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Sorry about that. I hit a button and I was confused. I was like, whoa. Go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We're going to be right back talking a little bit about AOC. AOC, she is being called out because she was photographed flying first class to a Bernie Sanders event last month. Critics are saying that she's battling inequality one mimosa at a time. She was fighting the oligarchy, right, at these rallies with Bernie Sanders. And these people should at least pretend, right, that they are like you. Okay, they should at least pretend to be like the people that they represent. Okay, however, that's way too much to ask of AOC because she hypocritically flew first class, and she actually, after flying first class, she got up onto a podium and started screaming about taxing the rich and, how the rich people, and she has such a disdain for the rich people in this country. I just find it so hypocritical. It's hilarious. We're going to be right back with that. I also want to talk about, I think that's all we've got today. The AOC thing. And yes, I did go to the Charlie Kirk event. Did you go? Let me know in the comment section. Are they going to describe an abortion? Yeah, I highly doubt that the medical professionals that they're having come into Normal West room 233 at 3:30 today, I highly doubt that they're going to describe what an abortion is. I highly doubt they're going to describe the side effects of these gender-affirming care, so-called gender-affirming care therapies and hormone therapies and surgeries, where they take the flesh out of your arm and create genitalia and put it on you. Gross. Gross. Okay. No matter how much you fight, and talk to detransitioners. Chloe Cole is a good resource. Listen to them. They'll tell you that they will never get their lives back after getting on hormone therapies, and you destroy your body and you will never get back. And you will never even talk to transgender people. Once they get onto these hormone therapies, they never, ever get to a point of where they actually feel like a boy or actually feel like a girl. Why? Because it's a mental illness. Okay. They will never attain their gender that they want because it's a mental illness where they think that a gender dysphoria, I'm this gender, that gender, and it's ever changing. And maybe one day they want to be a boy, one day they want to be a girl, but it's a mental illness, and no matter how much they try in the physical, they'll never get to that point of feeling like a girl, because at the end of the day, they're not, right? Because every little part of your body cell, like in your body, has the DNA of a male. So it's never going to work. And they get really upset by that when it doesn't work, because they've been lied to by medical professionals their whole lives. And these medical professionals are going to lie and say that, yes, you can change your gender. You can't. Okay. Biologically, you won't be able to. You can try, but you're never going to feel like a girl. You're never going to feel, because this is an ambiguous feeling. Okay. And you can't even describe it. In most of these cases, these people who experience gender dysphoria, they can never truly describe what they're feeling deep down inside. We're going to get to AOC. Flying first class, and she's, screaming at this crowd, proclaiming her disdain for the rich. Very hypocritical. Socialist representative AOC. Last month was with Bernie Sanders. They did this Down with the Oligarchy tour, or Fight the Oligarchy. Yeah, Fight the Oligarchy, because I remember AOC, she said fart the oligarchy on accident, which was hilarious. So this passenger snapped a picture of AOC getting real comfy in first class cabin of a JetBlue flight 511 on March 19th, departed from JFK Airport in Queens for Las Vegas, where she spoke at a Sanders rally titled Fighting the Oligarchy. Nothing says power to the people like ignoring voters who say hello. And I guess allegedly the voters, the people on the plane, had said hello to AOC. She ignored them, and she reclined in her first class seat and started tweeting about income equality, probably. But the flyer claimed that AOC did not respond to friendly comments as she sat down in first class. We're going to talk about it here next. Fart the oligarchy, as AOC said just a month ago or so. Yeah, she was. Somebody snapped a picture of her. She was flying first class. Allegedly, she also ignored voters, constituents, people who were on this flight with her when they were being friendly. She sat down in first class, reclined, and probably started tweeting about income equality or something like that. Nothing says power to the people like ignoring your voters who are saying hello. So she got on this flight, JetBlue flight 511, March 19th. She departed the JFK airport in Queens for Las Vegas, where she spoke at a Sanders rally, a Bernie Sanders rally. The rally was titled Fighting the Oligarchy. So hypocritical.
Conservatives are laying into progressive Congresswoman from New York, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The question here, is it fair that they're going after her over this? Take a look. She was caught on camera traveling first class on a JetBlue flight last month. She was on her way to Las Vegas to speak at a Fight Oligarchy event with Senator Bernie Sanders, events in which she has been railing against the wealthy elite.
We are witnessing an oligarchy in America. When those with the most economic, political, and technological power destroy the public good to enrich themselves, a certain ugly kind of politics that at its core is about lying to and screwing over working and middle-class Americans.
Other passengers.
Okay. So that's AOC. JetBlue flights, first class flights, $1,000+. Okay, first class seats on planes are also widely condemned by climate change activists because you can't fit as many people in there, and it's bad for the climate, causing more carbon emissions. So not only does she live a life of the wealthy and she pretends to despise them, but she also takes part in a system that decreases the number of people allowed in a flight, resulting in more carbon emissions. You can't take leftists, if they didn't have, they wouldn't have standards if they didn't have double standards, right? So it's just ridiculous. It's impossible to be woke enough for these people, and they do all of these different contradictions. Everything they pretend to represent, they contradict, and they lecture you about taxing more of your income. And meanwhile, they're taking these privileged flights, and they couldn't be more hypocritical if they tried. And this is something that nobody should condone. AOC, AOC. All right. I got to go. That's the end of the show. I appreciate you tuning in today. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble, and subscribe to the channel. We'll be back tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Bye-bye. Be blessed. I'll talk to you later.